Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We are on a World of Ability podcast. This channel is called World of Pets, and we are sponsored by debspets.com. Go to debspets.com, where we've discovered immune boosting mushrooms that can actually help your immune system and your pet's immune system. A number of other products. They're very wonderful. Go check out the Enforce and the Enforce Plus and at debspets.com. That's DEBSPETS.com. And with that, I'm going to welcome in my co host, Anthony. Anthony, go ahead and introduce yourself and your guest.
Hello, everybody. Can you see me? I can't see me.
Hmm.
So anyway,
Almost.
welcome in. It's good to be here again today, this week. Today, our guest is actually my neighbor, Garrett. And Garrett and his family back in December adopted two puppies from the local shelter here in Tucson. And they're from the same litter. So we're going to let Garrett talk a little bit about the challenges of adopting puppies and kind of the area where we live and how these homes are set up a little bit. We're going to talk about the challenges of raising puppies. I even had somebody today talking to one of the students at the school where I work tell me today that they even heard that raising puppies from the same litter is more challenging than normal. So we're going to discuss all of those things. But anyway, thank you for joining us, Garrett.
I appreciate it. And for sure, actually, just to touch on your last comment there, I might not know much around the background of that comment in regards to, as you said, raising them from the same litter is probably a little more difficult. It definitely is the first time in our family's history of owning dogs that we've had not just two dogs, but two dogs from the same litter. And I would definitely say that that is a high possibility because while these dogs are generally very well behaved, they're Catahoula Leopard Dogs. Yeah, they're brother and sister, and they for sure feed a lot off each other's energy. And even in bringing, them to the dog park, I've noticed that the female, her name is Dot. She's very apprehensive and anxious around other dogs, but when she's with her brother Dexter, she's just crazy, running around, tackling. We've got a glass-topped coffee table. Well, not for much longer, I can guarantee you anyway. It's that glass top. All I hear sometimes is the clang of the glass flicking up.
Right, yeah.
Here we go. But yeah, we adopted Dexter and Dot from PAC, which is Pima Animal something.
Care Center. Pima
Care
Animal.
Center. And
Same place I got bought 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms, it's a great facility and a really nice staff as well. And obviously, they're eager to get dogs adopted out and whatnot, and totally fair. But I mean, the experience there in adopting them was really actually quite nice, and we did enjoy it. I mean, so much so that we went back the next day and we picked up the sister, which was something we thought would be better in general, just so that they don't get lonely or on their own. But my first note of advice, and I think this is pretty well known, is crates. Get crates. They're new to your home. They don't really have boundaries. You've got to set the boundaries, obviously. So, I mean, destruction is key in puppies, I think. And, they're the most loving, cuddly dogs. But, they just get hyper and they get up on countertops. Everything has to be in at the back or off, or else they're getting up there and they'll eat it. And they don't care whether it's a wire or it's a loaf of bread. And I really mean that. They've eaten a loaf of bread. I've come downstairs and said, I just took that loaf of bread out, guys. But they're just really wonderful, cute dogs. They're mid-sized. They'll get bigger. But in terms of it, I think crates are very important. And also research. You've got to research your kind of dogs you have. The kind of dogs you're bringing into your home. Does it suit the kind of living situation or neighborhood you're in? If you've got other pets or small children, these are all huge considerations to take into account because we have a cat here and, we didn't know too much about a Catahoula Leopard Dog. And I'm not going to lie, I'd never heard of a Catahoula Leopard Dog before we went to, PAC and adopted a dog. And, whilst they're not necessarily bad with cats, they're just kind of really excited and over aggressive. So a lot of the time they've got to be separated. So, I mean, there's a lot of considerations to take into account. And then, as I say, the living situation is a huge part of this. We've got these two dogs, and myself and Tony live in a neighborhood where they're nice homes. They're almost like detached townhomes. So they don't have a perimeter or a front yard or a backyard. You've got a sidewalk in the front that leads into your front door, and you've got a garage and a little way surrounded by 5 other houses. So, in terms of letting them run
It's like a
free,
small parking lot behind the houses.
yeah. So it's very hard, especially, with puppies, you can't just let them run around, even though, they've got all of that incredible energy to run around. So, definitely in that realm, you've got to kind of gauge how their life is going to be where you live. It's as much as it's about you and your family and wanting a pet and something to support your family and your children, which is wonderful. You've got to take into account the dog and the dog's life and what that dog's life is going to be like where you are and what they're dealing with. So I think research is definitely key. But at the same point, they're puppies, they're born to destruct for a while, and they want to destruct everything in the house. And you've just kind of got to take that firm hand. Definitely in the beginning, you are their owner, and they've got to know you're their owner. And to take it lightly is, to allow your life to kind of be run over by these dogs kind of very easily. So, the first steps of training are just, I'm not a dog trainer by profession. I'd never claimed to be one either. But at the same point, you've got to be kind of maybe a little strong, quite strong, really. And honestly, it might come off as not very nice, and you might not like yelling at a dog. But if you don't, they're not really going to get that message. They're just going to say, cool, I'm going to keep going, and we're going to keep having this day, and we're going to destroy more, And again, with this housing situation, unfortunately, they can't go out and pee independently. And that is another huge factor. Your house is going to be destroyed, possibly. You've got carpet. It's hard to come out. It's going to stain and it's going to smell. So, there's a lot to consider when bringing any amount of puppies. My main advice, though, truly, I would not do the 2 at once again. It is just too difficult. They feed so heavily off each other's energy. And it just causes destruction, and you're trying to calm down 2 very hyper dogs at once, and you can't do both at the one time. So one is kind of hopping on you while you're trying to yell at one, and then you kind of lose it. It kind of collapses in. So in my best opinion at this moment in time, I'm going to let someone else maybe give their opinion, but I would definitely say if you want 2 dogs, that's wonderful, or 3 dogs, but definitely have a dog in the house on its own. I think trained and ready, and that dog could probably set the tone for the other dogs coming into the house. And they'll learn, I think, more from the other dog than probably a human, almost, in my opinion. And I don't know how you guys feel about that.
No, I would agree, and I would say in most situations, if you're going to have multiple dogs at the same time that you're raising, you want to make sure you've got the land and the facilities, kind of like what you were saying. You don't want your home destroyed, right? So have somewhere where you can put them that's climate controlled, that you maybe have an acre or 2 for them to get out and run that energy out every day. The problem out here is in Tucson, Arizona, is you have to do extra training. So if you're going to have puppies and you're going to let them, even if you have just an acre or 2 and you're going to let them wander off the leash, you got to have them snake trained, because they're going to get mixed up with a snake, and that's going to be a bad day when they get mixed up with a snake. And so you have to face all of those challenges. But I appreciate you saying that. One of the things that I remember and was thinking about it was when you first got the one dog, which Dexter, I think, came first. And when you got Dexter first, the hope was, hey, now my dog Cobb is going to have a playmate, and these 2 dogs can play together. But the 2 of them together, your 2 dogs together mixed with Cobb, it's like an explosion of energy. And there's just dog everywhere, and nobody can control anything. And it's like, all right, this is not going to work in this environment. And so,
no, that is very true.
Of a more controlled environment.
Oh yeah, it is one of those situations with this kind of living situation whereby, as well, not even to mention, like, if you're working, you've got a full work schedule. You don't really want to leave a dog in a crate for 7 to 8 hours, because that seems quite unfair to the dog, but at the same point, you don't want to risk destruction to your home. So you're kind of in that fine kind of almost box whereby if you had one, you could probably, let him roam free, because he probably wouldn't, get too hyper on his own. He'd probably just get bored. But with the two of them, you know, you're kind of forced to almost crate them every time you leave them alone because they can't get out. They're just gonna pee. You're just gonna come home to the pee and the poop and something destroyed between the two of them. We've lost a lovely cushion from the couch at this point, and now it's very awkward. There's just one
Yeah,
missing.
yeah,
So
that's I got a whole story. I mean, when you talk about the crate training, I always did it. Get in the box, give them a treat. Once they get into the box, give them a treat. And I did start with my oldest one. I made sure that he was set before we got another one, and then we got Bella, and he helped train her. And then when they had Peyton, litter of one, and we decided to keep him, they helped train him too. And so I could leave all three of them in the same crate for as long as I needed to. My wife would get home from work before me, let him out, or whatever. And then after the divorce, when I had Duke and Peyton left, I was able to leave him in the kennel because I was on salary, unfortunately, but for up to 12 hours. And once they're used to that, they sleep. And as soon as they come out, they want to go potty. They want to come in, drink the water, eat the food. But yeah, it's absolutely essential. And I think that one at a time is the best way to go for sure.
yeah, I mean, they're actually. I will say we got the crates. We ordered them, and then they got delayed to a point on Amazon where I just canceled the order. I went to Walmart and got two big nice ones, and I actually do think they don't love their crates, but they both of them know to go in there, and they do both actually run in. They can tell them not to. Sometimes they'll do some funny business. They'll start running, but generally we have Kong, the toy, the Kong that you put peanut butter in. If I just put the Kong in there, I'll put a bit of peanut butter in the Kong. I'll throw it in. She's a bit more reactive to the treat situation.
Yeah.
For sure. She's a bit more food motivated than our Dexter. He's a bit more of a slower eater as well, but you know, he is definitely more of the follower, and she is definitely more of the boss. Once she goes in and she has her Kong, he just runs right into his crate, which is nice. And they don't tend to whine in there, which is also nice. And another thing, they don't pee or poop in their crates, which is great because there's nothing. Because that was a huge fear with Dot because she's not caught on to potty training the way Dexter has. I don't believe Dexter even. He's not gone inside our house probably since the beginning of January. Even he was very quick to it. She's not so quick, but yeah, I mean that's another thing. You're trying to train at the same level with two different animals, and they're not on the same level. One understands one thing more than the other, and the other understands something else more than the other. So it can be a little bit sometimes quite stressful. I won't lie, you know. But I mean, I would agree. It is important maybe to have one and then have the next one follow and so on. It just seems to, you know, keep the balance of your home a little bit more balanced.
And I agree with what both of you said, David and Gary, as far as having one dog that is established in the home and kind of older, and that kind of trains the other dog. Any of our regular listeners will know I moved back down to Tucson. I had lived here for 12 years, spent a little bit over a year in the Pacific Northwest getting some things squared away, and then came back in October. Well, my parents live up there in the Pacific Northwest, and when I was up there with them, my mom had one Chihuahua that got mixed up with something on the ranch, probably a owl or a hawk or a coyote or something anyway. So it was gone. So my siblings and I got her another dog. Well, she had that Chihuahua, the new Chihuahua, Noelle. She had Noelle for about 4 months, and then she got another dog, Cody, that she added to the mix. Well, Noelle was able to basically train Cody all on her own, just kind of the way things are in the house, the way things run, how we come in and out, and how they do everything up there on that ranch. And so it absolutely is just something innate within dogs, something that is just naturally instinctual within them, where they kind of, because they're pack animals probably, so the leader of the pack is, once it's established, kind of trains the other dogs what the pack does. And so I agree with that. But Gary, you had talked earlier about the breed of dogs you have, the Catahoula Leopard Dogs. So I thought, you know what, like you, until you got him, I'd never heard of this. I was like, what in the world is a leopard dog? Is it a leopard or a dog? You know. So anyway, I decided, like, let's do some research on it. And what I found out is that they're the state dog. Do you know what dog they're the state dog of?
Missouri, I believe. Is it
No.
Missouri or Mississippi?
Louisiana. So they're called They are the Catahoula Leopard Dog is an American dog breed named after Cataluna Parish in Louisiana. And in 1979, it was recognized as a state dog and then recognized by the United States Kennel Club as an official American breed. So I did not know that. I had no clue up until today when I looked it up. I'd never heard of a Catahoula Leopard dog, but I thought that was interesting. That they are
Yeah,
the Louisiana state dog.
I did know that. I looked it up. I did forget it. I won't lie, but uh, yeah, there. I mean, they are really truly beautiful dogs. I don't know if I can insert a photo. I mean, the best I have is my one. No, it's not going to come up on the screen, unfortunately. But they're mid-sized to large dogs for sure. They are going to grow quite a bit. Right now, they're around the 8-month mark, and they're up above my knees currently, and you can almost see the way they're growing, which again I think speaks to almost like this particular living situation where you're like, another thing is you've got to consider the size of the dog you want when you're doing that,
Yep.
because these things are huge. Sometimes there's bull mastiffs and you're like, where are you putting a bull mastiff in your apartment? I'd
Right.
love to know how you're keeping a bull mastiff in your apartment, but you are. So I think responsibility and ownership and research is a huge part of it. Unfortunately, it's not something we have genuinely the opportunity to do a whole lot of, especially when you're adopting a dog. And it's kind of, I mean, you have that kind of structure of, well, you're here and you have a selection. And I mean, how much time do you really have to start Googling things and getting all the information you want on the spot? But definitely, it is worth doing the research on everything you're bringing into your home, obviously. And these dogs, they're not angry, they're not aggressive, which is a wonderful thing. And they don't jump really hugely. They'll hop up on top of you and they'll cuddle you and they'll want to, do all of that. But I mean, we're very lucky that, especially because, there is that possibility when you do adopt a dog from an animal shelter that there is a history of pretty severe possible neglect and abuse. And obviously, like any human being, that is going to have effect on who you are and how you act, obviously. So that goes without saying. So we had looked at one prior dog before Dexter originally, and he seemed like a really lovely dog. He was probably a little bigger than Cobb was, but he was just really, really super aggressive and possessive, and there was obviously a history there. So that is another thing, obviously, to consider when adopting a dog is the possible past, especially if you have children. You don't know what that reaction could be and what could possibly set them off. So certain breeds, I mean, there's a lot of pit bulls and terriers in animal shelters at the moment. So I think we were very lucky in the sense that, considering we didn't do a huge amount of research before we did take them home, that, they're very calm dogs. They're very loving, cuddly dogs. And they don't have a bad bone in them. And you can almost tell that they don't understand when you're angry at them. They're kind of like, huh? What?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, this is serious. And they're really a wonder. I think they're a wonderful breed, even though in doing that research, they're not technically really that cuddly of a breed of dog.
Right. Yeah.
But I've got these two and they will you'll walk into the room and they'll just immediately all fours up, rolled over, like, come on, you're here now, get to petting, it's over. So, I think we're very fortunate that we have two dogs, albeit very energetic and hyper, and they definitely have a mission, and it might be to destroy this house, I think. But they don't bite, they don't claw, and they don't really act maliciously.
Right.
And the temperament of certain dogs, unfortunately, is default almost. So again, it goes back to that kind of research element and knowing what you're getting into, and also you're the owner. You've got to know what you're capable of with these animals.
Yep,
like, are you capable of training necessarily? Are you capable of maintaining? All of these things are very important.
And I think that's with any animal. Anybody that knows me or is a frequent listener of this channel knows about my desire to deal with horses. But I can't tell you how many people get into like hobby farming or hobby ranching and think they're going to just own these horses and then don't know the first thing about it. So you absolutely, no matter what the animal, but especially an animal you're going to have in your home, you absolutely need to make sure you can handle the animal before you just get it. You don't want some dog you can't handle. Interestingly enough, for any listeners or viewers that may view this, you were talking about the breed and doing the research on it. And I looked some things up, as I mentioned earlier. And actually, in the 18th century, an explorer by the name of Hernando de Soto bred his mastiffs with greyhounds and with a native red wolf, creating a wolf dog. And then later on in the 18th century, French settlers, bred this wolf dog that he had created with a dog called a Boqueron, and that's how they got the Catahoula breed that we have today. So they actually are descendants of mastiffs, which is going to give them a larger frame and a bit of a larger size. So
it's going to be a big dog.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite funny because it's my mother's house that we're in, and she loves dogs. Obviously, I mean, I don't think she'd allow 2 dogs into her home if she didn't love dogs. But her one request, because she sent my sister and I to go pick this dog. We didn't know what dog we were coming home with, but her one request was, please don't get me a dog that's going to be really big. Just don't bring home a big dog. And we brought them home, and then we started, doing the post research, which again, I would heavily advise you to do taking the dog home. And I was like, let me show you a picture of what she's going to look like fully grown. And yeah, they do get to be about probably a little bit bigger than golden retrievers. I'd say they've got but they've got a beautiful stance, I think. And if you do Google it, you'll see them. They almost stand like, I'm trying to think of the breed of dog, but the way that they're kind of, their belly, their rib cage kind of goes up into their belly. Do you understand what I'm saying, Anthony?
Mm-hmm. They kind of get a bit of that greyhound stance.
Greyhound. Yeah, they do have a really nice frame and everything, but they are big dogs. And, at a certain point, I don't like to say it too much, but they are going to have to be separated just because realistically, they're going to need more space. One of them just going to need more space, and it's not going to be fair to leave these 2 massive dogs on top of my poor mother, who does not need that in her life. But that is a huge thing about the size of a dog, how much they're going to eat a lot. These are all factors. This is going to cost a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot. There are certain dogs also that have a lot of inherited medical issues as well. All of these things are a hugely thing. And the last thing you want to have to do is turn around and say, I can't do this, so now I've got to return the dog, right? Yep. And at the end of the day, the only thing that shows is that you're uninformed and you didn't make it your business to know what you were doing. Think of it like you're buying a car. You're not just going to walk into a car dealership and say, I like the look of the blue one, I'll take it. You want to do your research. You want to know what kind of miles it's going to get. And you want to know how much, whatever, the seats or the features. You want to know your kind of background on it. And it goes without saying it's the exact same with dogs, because we're going to have to come to a point with these 2 dogs where, just for peace sake, because I say they're not aggressive, but if they continue to feed off the energy as they do, it's just not going to be able to be sustained by one person on her own in this house. And that is the reality. You've got to think, you're going to have this pet. It could live anywhere from 10 to possibly 20 years. Right. That is a huge portion of life, but it's their whole life, and they deserve the best shot and opportunity. And you wouldn't do it to a kid.
Right. Yeah. So the whole title of today's episode was Adopting Rescue Dogs, and you touched on doing the research, and you never know what you're going to get in this situation. And I adopted Cobb from the same place. It's really the only available shelter of any size here in the Tucson area. And there's a couple smaller ones, but obviously the smaller they are, the more expensive they are to maintain, so the more it's going to cost you. But Cobb was 9 weeks old when I adopted her, so she was still just a puppy. And so she's grown up with my kids, and she's grown up around me, and she's officially a medium dog. So I took her to the vet. They got her weighed, and they said right where her weight is right where medium dogs and small dogs intersect. So according to my vet, she's a medium. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, she's a small medium, and but I think that's important. I think knowing the size of the dog, but also, if you're not going to get a puppy, if it's not a dog that you're able to raise and train and get used to you and your family, is there any type of information while you're adopting a rescue that is going to help you know what the temperament of this dog might be. Because I don't care what the breed of dog is, people can trash one breed or another. A lot of the dog's temperament comes from how they were raised. Now, I know that there's certain breeds that are more aggressive than others, but even still, their temperament still largely plays on in what type of environment was this dog raised.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. And if you go down to pack and you're going through, even if you hop online and they'll have all of the available pets there. And they'll have albeit a quite brief description of the dog and an estimated kind of age of the dog. And, some things that it enjoys and other things that it might not enjoy so much. But no, I mean, as much as I'd like to say there's quite a lot of information there at the time, there really isn't. And that kind of is somewhat unfortunate because, you don't want to leave the dog shelter without a dog, but you also don't want to do wrong by the dog.
Yeah.
So, and, you do run the risk of someone coming in and adopting that dog in maybe the 24 hours that you don't do it. But at the same point, I would still really advise, even if that is the case, and you are thinking, well, I think the dog might be gone tomorrow, and they probably will say to you, like they did to us, oh, we have people who are interested in this puppy,
Right,
and like a car salesman, they want the sale, almost, and you're like, I understand that, but I would still take that advice because if you take that dog home on day one. Well, you might not know what you're going to get into by day 3, and you might be back where you started. So either way, not only are you wasting your own time, you're wasting the shelter's time, and you're really having a horrible effect. And I do want to just touch base back on, as you were saying, Tony, about a minute ago there, regarding the temperament of a dog and the way it kind of reacts. And it is kind of that almost like a human, like a child, the child is the product of the parent, and that is the reality. You are the parent of this dog. The way you deal with it, the way you treat it, and the way not even necessarily you're directly linking yourself and your behavior to it, but your dog is witnessing it. Your dog is seeing it, and they are taking it in, and that is a very real thing. You don't want to have huge arguments in front of children, right? And I'm not saying dogs are the same as children, but they are listening. They are taking all of these things in, and you do have to be really cognizant because it's not even maybe about you, but if you do that, then they could go into the world and they could, do some pretty unsavory things that result in, injury or, destruction of property possibly. So, it is a really good point to say that they're going to feed off of your energy and behavior. They're a product of you. And you do have to, you have to watch yourself, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but if you don't, and then they do become aggressive, it's unfortunate that the dog's probably going to receive the brunt of that anger still.
Yeah.
So,
it's true though, what you're saying. Dogs instinctually react off of 2 things: tone and emotion. So, for example, Cobb is trained as an emotional support animal, and she was going through the process to become a service dog. I've had some difficulty getting her back into training here in Tucson, but she knows when I'm in pain. She knows when I'm feeling depressed, and she will literally climb up on the couch, get on top of me, throw her front legs over me, put her face right here, and hug me. Dogs feed instinctually off of emotion and tone. So if you have an aggressive tone and a constant home full of aggressive emotions, a dog's going to be raised in that environment. I don't care what the breed is. A dog is going to be more aggressive than in an environment where it's calm and it's steady and it's stable. And, obviously we all have emotions, and we all go through a gamut of emotions in a day, a month, a year. But whatever the most consistent emotion is, I agree. I think that's what a dog's in play off of in that environment. Got anything to add, David?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because I'm just watching the 3 dogs that I've raised, all of them from puppies. They knew your body language. If you were upset, they would get out of the way. If you needed to have a little cry, they'd come cry with you and cuddle up. And it's amazing. Yeah, they observe it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, again, getting back to one of the points Garrett was talking about here at our shelter in Tucson, even if the dog is owner surrendered, and it's a little bit of an older dog, because that is an option that our shelter has, the Pima Animal Care Center, is owners can surrender their dog to the shelter, and then that dog will eventually go out for adoption. But even with that, unfortunately, in today's world, you just don't know if the owners were completely upfront and honest with everything. So I think it's really important. They have playrooms there, and pack is always, because it is the largest one in our area, it's always full. So they're always trying to push dogs out the door. But I would just say to them, hey, I want a little bit of time to let the dog be around my kids. If you have kids, let me bring my kids in and play with the dog, see how they react, because kids are going to do certain things. Kids are going to make sharp motions. Do the dogs respond a certain way to sharp motions? Kids are maybe going to be my son is so aggressive sometimes with Cobb, and I even have to get on to him, even though Cobb's 2 years old and Cobb's used to him. It's like, hey, Brody, you don't need to choke slam the dog, but that's just a boy being a boy. And you need to be able to know, how is this dog going to react when my son comes up, jumps on him and throws his arms around her neck? How is she going to react? Now, Cobb thankfully just thinks he's playing. I still monitor him. I still get on to him for it, still tell him not to do it. But you need to see your kids, your family. Maybe you have an older relative that has a walker or a cane and they live in the home. Is a dog constantly going to be under their feet, tripping them up? These are all things you need to be mindful of.
Yeah. Yep. Well, absolutely. And just to ping off that as well, Pack will let you, if you have another dog inside your home, Pack will let you bring that dog with you to their center while you're, looking with your dog. They will absolutely put you inside that enclosed area for, really as long as you want. And they'll let the dogs greet each other and the family also, and pretty much anyone or any kind of pet you want to bring in to see how that will work. They're very accommodating and they will facilitate that, because at the end of the day, as much as they do, they do want to push dogs out the door. And it's not just to get rid of them. It is, hugely in part because the people who work there love dogs and they want to see these dogs go to a good home. And, it is nice that they do, facilitate, a good amount of time between you and the, possible adoptee, as well as your family and possible pets even. And that is something I did actually see with my own eyes while there. And I thought that was really nice because, what if you do bring home a dog and it just doesn't at all gel? You don't want to have to, surrender that dog. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like, even if you go to a breeder specifically, and then you go and you're sitting around 10 different puppies, and whichever one likes you the best is the one you take home.
Right.
Still, once you develop that relationship with that dog, you still got to train them to be around other people, other kids, all that stuff. So yeah, same thing.
Yeah, and the tone. Because I cut out, and I do apologize for a second. I don't know what happened there with the Wi-Fi, but I did really think the tone part, which Tony mentioned a minute or so ago, is hugely important. And I think it's almost like you've got to regulate like very pure anger, because like when you're really annoyed, it's a different kind of anger. And I don't think you want to display that to your puppy either. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's almost like when you're talking to a baby and you kind of do the, did you do that? You can't do that, because they sense, that I think there's a fear that they have inside them, and the tone has a huge part of it. And as much as you drive into them that they can't do that, they sense that real anger, and it's scary for them as well. And you're trying to set boundaries. You're not trying to scare your dog away from you. The reactions could be really, really dangerous in the end.
And on a positive note, one of the things that you can do, playing off emotion and talking about going along this same thread here that we've been talking about with my dog, for example. So I have shared custody of my kids with my ex-wife, literally 50-50 right down the middle, week on, week off. And our switch day is Mondays at school. So Mondays while they're at school, we switch. And so when my kids are here, I set my alarm every day for 1:45. That gives me enough time to get up, maybe use the restroom, whatever I got to do, go get the kids. And so every time Cobb hears that alarm go off, She kind of looks at me, gets off the couch, and then I say, "You want to go get your kids?" And I mean, she just goes nuts, tail wagging, running around in circles, but baying, boo! She's all excited. She wants to go get her kids, and it's fun that you can have a dog. And I didn't even have to train her to do that. She just got used to the routine and the habitualness of when that alarm goes off, he's going to get the kids. She's a great car dog, loves to ride in the car. And she loves being at the school because all the monitors are greeting her and petting her and doing all that stuff. So she loves all of that. But yeah, so the dogs will definitely feed off the environment, and you can have positive fun with them like that. Hey, let's go get the kids. And they're getting all excited and going nuts. And it's a good thing.
Yeah, that consistency is just as important with animals as it is with kids.
Oh, yeah.
Get them on a schedule. If you know you're going to sleep in a certain day, go ahead and make sure you let them out right at the last minute before you go to bed, whatever you got to do, just so that you can get the rest that you need and can keep your own cycle. But once you're back to work on Monday or whatever you're going to do, they're going to know that alarm as soon as it goes off, and they're going to want to go out, and they're going to wag that tail, and they're going to know exactly where to go.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, I'm as trainable as a dog, if you want to put it that way.
No, a routine is hugely important. I do agree because even they know they are very much aware that when I wake up or when anyone wakes up in this house, the first person who wakes up, whichever door opens, that person will bring them for a walk. And they know that. Even if they're up in my room and someone else leaves and goes downstairs, they'll hear the door to the pantry open and they'll know, oh, the box with the leashes is coming out. It's time to go. We're going for the walk, which I think is great. They do understand. I think they understand a good deal more than you think they do almost.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
And it is a learning curve though, because at the same point, sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I just want to stay in my bed for an hour and look at my phone. I don't want to get up. I'm barely able to move right now. I don't want to get up and bring you guys outside around the block right now. I'm tired. I'm still tired. But, if then that might happen. And then if there is, pee downstairs or there's poop somewhere, you have to ask yourself, well, how liable am I in this situation? And
I'll agree. Yep.
How much do I have a right to be angry at this dog right now? Because did I give them much of a choice, really? I chose me over it, so I'm going to suffer the consequences. Why should the dog suffer the consequences? So I think, again, knowing the boundaries and knowing, well, who's at fault here? This is an animal. They're going to act instinctually and they're going to follow that. But, you have to be responsible, and sometimes you just have to force yourself to get up and do it, or else, well, enjoy cleaning up the poop as your first chore in the morning before you have coffee,
I agree. If your dog is waking you up like Cobb, she'll literally come, put her paws on the bed, kind of shake the bed, whine a little bit. She'll wake me up if she needs to go out. If I choose to ignore that, I can't be getting onto her for whatever messes in the house. I chose to stay in bed and ignore that. That's her basically saying, Dad, I need to go out. You need to take me potty. If I choose to ignore that, that's on me. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah. Yep. No, absolutely.
It was bliss with all my dogs. I would sleep with all three of them. And as soon as one of them needed to wake up, they'd come lick my face. And, well, guess what? All three of you are going outside right now.
Yep.
I don't want to pick up after all three of you.
No, I mean, it is a matter of, I think sometimes when, one of the two of them is, you can almost tell, more so with Dexter, he's a bit more communicative. He'll go to the front door, and then he'll walk back to me, and then he'll walk back to the front door, and I'm like, okay, so you're not going for a drink because that's where we have the water bowl. And I'll take him out, and Dot will just kind of be staring like, I'm really asleep right now. And I'm like, you're still going outside though. So up you get and out you go. And, they do tend to, go to the bathroom, which is good, but it is the owner's responsibility at the end of the day. It comes down to, well, they're not going to go into the ensuite and use it. So, kind of get with the program.
And that goes back to what you were saying about 20 minutes ago. You have to know, what are you capable of doing? Are you capable of having this animal? And especially at a certain age, when they're puppies, you need to go out more than when they're, mature grown dogs. And so you've got to understand what your limitations are as well. Okay. Hey, thanks for joining us today. I mean, it was kind of last minute notice. I appreciate you jumping on with us and
No problem at
having
all.
this discussion with us.
No, it was
Very,
great.
very good.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely. I'll just go over our sponsors and thank yous real quick, and we'll get everybody out of here. But again, we're sponsored by Debbie Hayes at debspets.com. That's DEBSPETS.com. That's for pet health and wellness, along with human health and wellness. And we are on the World of Ability, hosted by Emily. Thank you so much again, Emily, for all the help that you do for us. Anthony, thanks again for co-hosting. Our guest, thank you so much. It was wonderful.
No problem. Thank you guys. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right, you
All
too.
right, buddy.
Until next time.
Until next one.